Hi, I'm Kat Kalashian for Live and Invest
Hello.
Overseas, and today I am joined by Sergey, who is former resident in Chicago and a recent adoptive native of Greece. And so we're here to find out a little bit more about why he chose Greece and how his settling in process is going. So, Sergey, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
So could you tell me just a little bit about your background, where you're coming from? I you don't look like you're of retirement age, so I'm assuming
Mhm.
you're still working.
Yeah, I'm trying to be in good shape, but I am not very very young. But yeah, my original background is from Russia. I was born in that country, and many years ago in 1997, I actually moved to the US. After that, spent many years in technology, working as a computer programmer, manager, director in different technical roles. And with time, obviously, I got more freedom to choose what I would like to do with my life. Eventually became a full-time investor, and that gave me location freedom. So now I don't have to be in a specific place. I can actually choose any place that I would like to be.
Fantastic. And so many people are realizing this, especially in this post-COVID world where, the remote work became very normal for so many companies. And it really has untethered so many people all around the world who are now free to pursue a career while being wherever they want to be, doing whatever they want to do in the meantime. And so you're married, correct?
I am, yes. I
Yes.
have a wife, Ludmila, and
Nice.
we've been together for 30 years. Yeah, that's
Great. So you guys made this decision together.
Mhm.
What sparked this interest in moving overseas at all outside of the US or in particular to Greece?
Yeah, we always like traveling. And even during my time in Chicago, whenever we had a long vacation, we would go far away. So we went to Japan, India, China, different American countries, European countries. So we like to explore the world, and being in a different place adds a lot of interest and spice to life.
Absolutely.
Um, and we are originally from Russia, which is part of Europe, you can say.
Right.
So Europe is actually close to our heart. We always wanted to spend more time here, and now it's a great time to do it. We are still energetic enough, to move to a new place and to enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic. All right. So, how did you zero in on Greece? You liked Europe. You thought we'd like to spend more time in Europe. Why did Greece rise to the top of the list?
It's a difficult decision to choose a perfect place because a perfect place probably doesn't
Doesn't
exist.
exist.
You can only get close enough to that. But we wanted a place where you have like a great feeling, you enjoy being there day to day. And a few countries actually met that criteria. But in addition to that, it should have good healthcare, good taxes, some availability of residency permits, that would
Right.
not too much of a drag, because some countries actually require you to file it annually, and we never really wanted to do that
Hmm.
because it feels like maybe next year, who knows, something changes.
And it's an
Um,
added cost when you have to renew every year. You have to pay those fees every year.
yeah. So Greece actually has passed all these filters, so we do enjoy being here. People are very, very nice. It's very safe. The climate is very nice. The food is very much enjoyable. We are
Hmm.
pescatarians, and Greece has probably the best vegetarian options and fish options as well.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
so yeah, no matter where you look, we found that Greece is the best of all the options that we looked
It
at.
checks all those boxes.
Checks all the boxes.
That's great. And yeah, it is so important to balance that kind of that romantic feeling, I want to call it, that
Mhm.
chemistry, that love that you have, the feeling that you have for a country versus the practicalities. Because of course, we would never recommend that somebody look only at the taxes, when it comes to
Mhm.
moving overseas or only at one specific criteria, whether it's healthcare, taxes, residency, etc. It's so
Mhm.
important to find a place that speaks to you in this kind of romantic way where you just love the day-to-day life there, but that also fulfills all of these logistical practicalities, being
Right.
able to physically move there. A lot of people want to move to Australia, they can't,
Hmm.
So it's a matter of finding what makes sense for you, but also in the general practical way as well. So had you guys spent a lot of time in Greece before you moved?
Yeah, we visited it a couple of times. These were shorter visits, but we had good enough impression of Athens and of some other places in Greece that we wanted to spend more time. So today we are staying here for over 3 months, and
Okay.
I have to say that after all the time, my desire to stay in Greece increases. So it doesn't
Exactly. And that's such a good
diminish
way of
anymore.
doing it, right?
Right.
Rent first, take it one little step at a time. And,
Mm.
if something ends up feeling not right, you can always pivot to another country or even move back home if that's the answer. But I love I mean, this is what most people find, right? They do fall in love with the country and then they go to
Mhm.
spend more time there and they end up never wanting to leave. This is 99% of the cases that I've heard.
Right, right, yeah. Mhm. That's the best case scenario.
Exactly. Yeah. So, sorry, exactly where are you in Greece? Can you tell us your location?
Yeah, I am in the capital in Athens and in the region, in the small area called Koukaki, which is close enough to the center and also close to the big hill, that I really enjoy walking on.
Excellent. I love that.
Has beautiful views of the Acropolis and plenty of flowers and walking trails. It's very
Yeah.
rare to find it in the middle of the big European city. So we do enjoy that particular area of the country. And
Okay, great. So basically in Athens, and I love Greece and Greek culture. Both of my daughters are named after Greek mythological
Oh, wow.
figures.
Mhm.
So I have a very close connection to Greece. And so all right, you're living in the main city. Do you own a car?
Not at the moment, we actually can walk everywhere. And this is a big advantage, because whenever we want to travel to other parts of Greece, we can always rent a car.
Hmm.
But being in the center gives you this advantage where you don't need to have it.
Exactly.
You can just walk everywhere, and
Yeah.
that works for us.
Yeah, this is the wonderful thing about European capitals. It's not necessarily true of secondary or tertiary cities, but certainly in the capitals and in Spain, France, Portugal, all the secondary and tertiary cities too have wonderful public transportation. Many countries also have wonderful networks of buses or trains that can take you across the country so that you can explore it, and often at a discount if you're of retirement age. So it's one of the main reasons I think that a lot of people love to come to Europe. They realize that once you get settled someplace in Europe as a home base, the whole
Mhm.
continent is just right there. It's so easy to access and often very affordable to access as well.
Right.
All right. So, other than not owning a car anymore, obviously you're from Chicago before. I'm assuming
Mhm.
you owned a car.
Yeah, in Chicago, we
Yeah.
do have a car.
So that's a big difference for you. How has that impacted your daily life in terms of, in terms of feeling? Do you feel healthier walking every day? Like, how has this changed your outlook on life every day?
I do feel healthier, and I'm not sure. Is it thanks to me walking a lot during winter months? Maybe eating healthier food, maybe some other things. Just the general happiness in the air. That
Yeah.
I feel in Athens. But even in Chicago, we actually lived close to the city center in the area called Lincoln Park.
Hmm.
So we had a car to visit friends, to travel, but in our daily activities, we would rarely use it. So
Right.
it's somewhat similar.
Well, that's nice. And what about shopping? How has that changed? Do you guys use the local markets? Do you try and get out of the supermarkets that we're so used to back in the US?
You got it. Basically, every Friday we have a huge local market right next to us when many farmers bring their fresh produce, many fruits, vegetables, nuts, olive oil, anything you want. And every Friday, I spent maybe like €100 carrying huge bags, back home.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I have Americans always call it the old lady trolley,
Right.
but
Yeah.
everybody in Europe uses them. Everybody needs a
Right.
trolley to get their groceries home. It's not an old lady thing.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But
I
exactly, when you live next to a market like that, it's so fun to go on the market day and just load up. You get to know those vendors, you get to know who has the better price for which product, and then also what's in season. I love the fact that in Europe,
Right.
I eat so much more based on seasonal availability versus what's just always available that's imported.
Mhm. And I'm very impressed with the quality of the food, because anything that is very familiar to me, take oranges, for example, right? The taste of local oranges is very different from the ones that I had in Chicago. These are amazing. Now I eat them daily.
Right.
Um,
You discover new favorite foods.
yep.
That's
Yeah.
great. All right. So I need to ask the language question. And this is a little bit different because I'm assuming that you speak Russian, read Russian, you're already
Mhm.
familiar with the Coptic alphabet. So you
Mhm.
have already a leg up on that. But for most Americans, I can see this being one of the biggest perceived challenges about moving to Greece, the fact that the language is so very different and you're even working with a different alphabet. So how have you guys dealt with that in your lives? I know obviously it's a little bit different for you. Have you heard from other expats who don't necessarily know the Coptic alphabet and how they've dealt with it?
I do see that pretty much all the expats living here long enough speak perfect Greek. So everybody
Wow.
manages to learn it. I
Oh,
don't
I'm
know how
shocked.
people do. Right. Yeah, we are all familiar with the expression, it's all Greek to me,
Right,
because Greek
exactly.
is really difficult. And we do take some classes on Duolingo. So at the moment I can do simple things, I understand the alphabet, can say very common phrases. I will attend the language school later because I do feel if I decide to live in the country, I do need to speak the local language. I would estimate that probably in about a year, I will be quite fluent.
Well,
Now,
well done.
I do have this,
Congratulations.
thank you. I do have this confidence because previously I studied English and to some degree French.
Right.
There was a time when I was relatively fluent in French. So once you know how to do it, it's not a big deal.
Exactly,
But
yeah.
but to everybody else, I think go to language school, the intensive classes. It's going to be fun. You will meet some really nice people. And at the same time, you will learn how to speak, and that will increase your quality of life.
Yeah, great advice. All right. Well, I feel like there's so much more to talk about with you, but I want to leave it there for today, just to not take up too much of your time. But it was really a pleasure to get to know you a bit better. And thank you so much for taking the time out to share this little tidbit of your expat life in Greece with us.
Yeah, of course. And thank you, Kat, again for inviting me and letting me share my thoughts on Greece.
All right. Thanks. And have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye-bye.